Some of you may remember just over a year ago I changed where I was commuting to. I used to do about a 30-mile round trip. I now do an 80-mile round trip, and I do that twice every 8-ish days or so. So my 24 kilowatt hour Leaf is perfectly capable on paper of doing that 80-mile round trip. But the reality, it can't really do it. And I've always wondered, if I had the 30 kilowatt hour Leaf, actually, would that make my life a lot easier, and would I be able to do that commute without any issues? Oh, and look at this, what do you know, I just so happen to have a 30 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf. And well, once again, big thank you to Just EVs, they've lent me this for the day, so that I can do this experiment and see how it all works out. Before I get into the test and the mileage and the range that I get from this, I just wanted to talk about some of the little subtle differences between this car and my 24 kilowatt hour one. Now mine is a 2015 model, it's a Tecna, this is a 2017 Tecna. So for all intents and purposes, they're identical cars. The only difference is the battery size. But there's a few little tiny differences that I think it's worth sharing with you. So while we're outside, these wing mirrors on this newer one, when you turn the car off, they fold away. Or when you lock the car, they fold away. My ones don't do that. They will fold, but I have to press a button. Inside the car, there's a button on the steering wheel. It's on the left-hand side. In my car, it takes you to a map feature that shows you range and charging functions. On this one, it's the source button, so it scrolls through your radio, whether that be FM, DAB. Another thing my car doesn't have is DAB, this one does. It takes AUX, it takes you to all the different functions of your entertainment system. And that entertainment system, well, that is the biggest difference of all, because not only does it have DAB, but it's a reworked menu, so it looks completely different to my one. But they're your little subtle differences. As I say, the big one is the battery, but other than that, it's pretty much an identical car. And the biggest thing that I've noticed, and the thing that I'm most pleased about, is that although my car is 2 years older than this car, and my car has done over 45,000, it's heading towards 50,000 miles. This one's done just over 13,000 miles. My car still feels as good, it still feels as new as this one, and this one's in immaculate condition. So it just goes to show how well these cars wear. And if you're looking at buying one second hand, I can highly recommend them. The build quality, the way these things are put together is really, really good. So that's enough about the differences. Let's get on with the journeys, and let me talk you through exactly what happened and how we got on with that range. So let's consider this journey then. It's an 80-mile round trip, 40 miles each way. I start off in a town, I then go on to B roads, and I travel on those for probably best part of 10 miles. I then get onto A roads, and when they're flowing, they are 60-mile-an-hour roads, but when I'm going there, they're certainly not 60-mile-an-hour roads. They're an awful lot slower. The traffic is really, really heavy. So I probably stay on those for the vast majority of the journey, apart from a 10-mile stint where I'm on a dual carriageway. And that generally is always flowing. It's a 70-mile-an-hour road, and I can do 70 mile an hour along it at any time of the day. So going is rush hour, and it's really, really difficult to get up to the speed limit at any point apart from on that dual carriageway. I generally sit on the A roads. If I'm lucky, I can do 55 miles an hour. So from an electric vehicle point of view, it's the perfect speed. It's really kind on its range, and it works really, really well. So when I left home, I was showing 131 miles on the guessometer and 100% charge. Now you'll see why I call it a guessometer, because having driven those roads to get to my destination, it was 39 point something miles, 40 miles later, my guessometer was showing 80 miles of range. So it was showing that I'd done just over 50 miles when actually I'd done 40 miles. And that was slow driving. So obviously what I was doing prior to going on that journey was even slower and even kinder on the range and the battery. So you can see why it really is just called a guessometer. So having arrived, I have got 67% of my charge left. Now, if I did that in my own 24 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf, I would have somewhere around 45% of my charge left. So as you can see, there's no way, even at those slow speeds, that I would be able to do that return trip. So with 67% left, I'm cautiously optimistic that actually when I go home, and that drive home is pretty much in the middle of the night, so there's no traffic on the road, so I will be doing 60 mile an hour and 70 mile an hour where the conditions allow. So yeah, I am optimistic about it. So let's see how I get on with that return journey. Now, I can't really film it because it's the middle of the night and you can't really see what I'm doing or what I'm saying. So with that in mind, I'm going to cut across now to the following day when I got back, and I'll tell you all about that return journey. Morning and welcome to the day after the night before. I'm a little bleary-eyed, but nothing a bit of caffeine can't sort out. But you don't care about that, you want to know what the results are. And they're really interesting actually. That 40-mile trip, I don't think I've ever had the roads as clear as I had last night. I just sailed through. I came up behind one lorry which was on a straight and I was able to overtake it straight away. I barely saw another car coming the other way. It was perfect for exactly what I wanted to do. It gave me that extreme test. Now, temperature wise, it was 1 degree the whole way home, which meant I had my heating on, so it was set to auto at 20 degrees. I also had my heated steering wheel on and the heated seat on. So you can see that as far as trying to drive this and preserve the battery and be efficient, I was doing all the wrong things. I was driving it quickly, I had all the heaters and everything on. So to answer the big question, did I make it home? Well, yes, I did, and I made it home with no concerns whatsoever. That said, I did roll in on all the dashes, so there was nothing left, albeit those of you that drive a Leaf, you'll know that when you go to the dashes, that's about 6%, and it was probably about 400 metres before my house that we went onto that. And we normally reckon there's about 6 miles left in a car or in the Nissan Leaf when you hit those dashes. Certainly on my one, I'm presuming it's probably the same on the 30. And my miles per kilowatt hour, well, my average for the journey there and back was 3.7. For the journey home alone, it was 3.2. Now, again, if you drive a Leaf, you'll know that is horrendous. That just goes to show how unsympathetic I was to this car driving it back. But there was a good reason for that. I wanted to be sure that in the cold weather, if I'm having to rush home for a reason, am I going to be concerned about this car? Am I going to be worried that it's going to make it? In 5 years' time, when the battery starts to degrade a little bit more, am I going to be concerned that I'm going to be back where I am now with my 24 kilowatt hour Leaf? I wanted to know, I wanted answers to all those questions, and clearly I got them. Now, my normal driving throughout the year in my Leaf, I average 3.9 miles per kilowatt hour. It's slightly less in the middle of winter and it's slightly more in the height of summer. But that's my average throughout the year, and it has been for the last 3 years. So that gives you an idea that on my average driving, I would be able to do that trip day in, day out, no problems whatsoever. Thing is, after everything I've just said, actually I've got to be honest with you, I wanted this car to fail. I wanted to drive it really uneconomically all the way home until I got to a point where I just had to ease off, crawl the rest of the way home, and then I could say to you, this is a lovely car, but it's not for me. The trouble is, it's giving me a real headache now. It's given me a second option, a car that I can afford, that I know has got the quality around it to be able to, for us to be able to use day in, day out, and for me to be able to use for all of my journeys, whether they're at home or they're on my commute. And I didn't want that headache. I wanted that headache to come in a year or so's time when another car with a bigger battery dropped into my price bracket. But this one's already there. So I'm going to have to do some serious thinking now, and I'm going to have to work out some figures as to whether I can afford to buy one of these and part exchange my other one for it. A nice headache, some might think, but as I say, not one that I wanted at the moment. But that just goes to show just how good these little cars are. Obviously, they've been around for years now. These were one of the first electric cars to come on the market, and they just keep proving themselves over and over again. Now, of course, there's issues around whether there should be thermal battery management, but forget about it in these ones. This generation, it doesn't matter. I can see on my car that the state of health of the battery it's not affecting it at all. I don't look after it. I charge it to 100% every day. Even if I come home on 98%, I plug it in and charge it up. I run it down. I've done nothing to ever look after that battery, and it's still well over 90%, nearly 50,000 miles down the line. So I've got no concerns over how this car looks after its battery. The build quality is brilliant. Mine feels as tight and as good as this car does, even though it's that much older than it. It's got enough room to fit me and my 2 kids in. The boot's big enough for us to go on holiday together. I've never found wanting with this car, and I genuinely, when I bought my car 3.5, nearly 4 years ago, I thought it was going to be a car that we would use as a second runaround car that would do 8,000 miles a year, and it would just be a handy car to have. It might save us a few pounds. As it turns out, it's become our main car. We use it for everything. We fight over using it. If I got this car, I would be able to probably use it 100% of the time. And that would upset Sarah because she'll be stuck in a nice car. It's a brilliant little car is what I'm trying to say. And if you're in the market for a used second-hand car, honestly, don't look any further than this. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an idea about one of these 30 kilowatt hour Leafs and well, what it can do range-wise, even if you're driving it completely inefficiently, as I've been. If you are in the market for a second-hand EV, then why not give Just EVs a call? The people that lent this to me, they've been good enough to lend me cars now for a few weeks, and I've been in and around the company. They're not sponsoring me, we've got no connection other than they've been good enough to let me borrow their cars to do some reviews in. Have a look on their website and give them a call, because they might well be able to let you go out in one. You can have a test drive and see for yourself, see whether one of these cars or one of the other second-hand cars are right for you. But that's it for me today. If you've enjoyed the video, remember to like and share. If you're not doing so already, subscribe to the channel and all that malarkey. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at EV Opinion. And if you want to support the channel, have a look at Patreon. I'd really appreciate that. But until next time, you take care, and I'll see you soon. All the best.